The storm had been building for 3 days, and Marcus Webb could feel it in his bones, the way the air pressure dropped until his ears popped, the way the wind carried that electric taste that made his teeth ache. His research station sat alone on the edge of the Cascade Mountains, a collection of prefabricated modules designed to weather the worst that nature could throw at it. Marcus had chosen this isolation deliberately. After the divorce, after the laboratory accident that had ended his career in theoretical physics, he'd taken this assignment monitoring atmospheric conditions for the National Weather Service. It kept him fed and supplied, and more importantly, it kept him away from people who might ask uncomfortable questions about why a man with 3 degrees was content to read barometric pressure and upload data files. The wind howled around the station's reinforced walls as Marcus completed his evening readings. The barometric pressure had dropped 2 levels he'd never seen before, and the electromagnetic readings were spiking in patterns that made no scientific sense. He was logging the anomalous data when the proximity alarm chimed. Something large had just entered the detection perimeter, moving too slowly to be debris but too fast to be an animal seeking shelter. He pulled up the external cameras, squinting through the static that plagued all his electronic equipment. Tonight. At first, he saw nothing but rain and darkness. Then lightning flashed, illuminating the small figure huddled against the station's main entrance. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. It was a child, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, curled up on his doorstep in the middle of the worst storm he'd ever recorded. Without thinking, he was moving, grabbing his rain jacket and emergency medical kit. The door's magnetic locks disengaged with a heavy thunk, and the wind immediately tried to tear it from his hands. Rain lashed his face as he stepped outside, the cold droplets feeling like needles against his skin. The child didn't move when he approached. She was wearing what looked like a hospital gown, thin white fabric that was completely soaked through. Her long, dark hair was plastered to her head, and her skin had taken on a bluish tinge that spoke of dangerous hypothermia. "Hey there," Marcus called out, having to shout over the wind. "Can you hear me?" She lifted her head slowly, and Marcus felt his world tilt sideways. Her eyes were violet, not blue or gray, but a deep, luminous purple that seemed to glow with their own inner light. No human had eyes that color. No human had skin that pale, with that subtle silver undertone that became visible when lightning flickered overhead. But she was just a child, alone and freezing, and Marcus's instincts overrode his confusion. He knelt beside her, noting how she flinched away from his touch but didn't try to run. "I'm going to pick you up now, okay? We need to get you inside and warm." She didn't respond, but she didn't resist either when he lifted her. She weighed almost nothing, her small body rigid with cold. As he carried her through the doorway, Marcus noticed other details. Her fingernails had a subtle iridescent quality, and her skin felt different somehow, smoother than it should be, with a texture that reminded him of silk. Inside the station, the warmth hit them both like a wall. Marcus carried the child to the small medical bay and set her down on the examination table. Under the bright lights, her unusual features became even more pronounced. Her bone structure was slightly too delicate for a human child, her limbs a fraction too long in proportion to her torso. "Can you tell me your name?" Marcus asked gently as he pulled heated blankets from the emergency supplies. The child stared at him with those impossible violet eyes but said nothing. She didn't seem afraid, exactly, just empty, as if she was looking at him from a great distance, seeing something he couldn't understand. Marcus checked her vital signs as best he could. Her temperature was dangerously low, but her pulse was strong and steady. He found no obvious injuries, though there were faint marks around her wrists that looked suspiciously like restraint burns. Someone had been holding this child against her will. As he worked, wrapping her in warm blankets, Marcus found himself talking to fill the silence. "I'm Marcus. This is my research station. I monitor weather patterns for the government. Pretty boring stuff, really, but it keeps me busy. I'm going to take care of you, okay?" The child's eyes tracked his movements, but she remained silent. When he offered her a cup of warm broth, she accepted it with both hands and drank slowly, never taking her gaze off his face. It was as if she was memorizing him, cataloging every detail for some unknown purpose. He should have called the authorities immediately. Missing child, possible abuse case, definitely something beyond his expertise. But something held him back. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at him with those alien eyes, as if she'd been waiting specifically for him. Maybe it was the isolation. Talking, the part of him that had grown tired of being alone. Or maybe it was the simple fact that when he'd run a search through the missing persons database, he'd found nothing. No reports of missing children matching her description. No alerts for violet-eyed girls in hospital gowns. It was as if she'd materialized out of the storm itself, with no past and no one looking for her. The next morning, Marcus woke to find the child sitting at his small kitchen table, still wrapped in the thermal blanket, but now watching the sunrise through the station's main window. She'd found his emergency rations and had apparently figured out how to use the food synthesizer. "Good morning," Marcus said carefully. "How are you feeling?" She turned those violet eyes on him and spoke for the first time. Better. Her voice was soft, with an accent he couldn't place, something that made common English words sound like music. "Can you tell me your name now?" She was quiet for a long moment, her brow furrowed in concentration. I don't remember. There are pieces, but they don't fit together." "What kind of pieces?" "Sounds, colors, the feeling of being somewhere else." She touched her temple with one small hand. "It hurts when I try to remember." Marcus sat down, across from her, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "That's okay. Sometimes when we've been through something traumatic, our minds protect us by hiding memories until we're ready to deal with them." She studied his face with an intensity that was unnerving in someone so young. "Why do you promise to help me? You don't know me." The question caught him off guard. Most children would simply accept adult reassurance, but this child spoke like someone much older, as if she understood the weight of promises. "Because," Marcus said finally, "I know what it's like to have nowhere else to go." Something shifted in her expression, a flicker of understanding. "You're alone too, yes. Then we can be alone together, on the fourth day." She chose a name for herself. "Luna," she said, watching the moon rise through the station's window. "I think I'd like to be called Luna." As the weeks passed, they settled into a routine that felt surprisingly natural, as if they'd been meant to find each other in that storm. 9 years had passed since the storm brought Luna to Marcus's doorstep, and the isolated research station had become something neither of them had expected: a home. The scared, silent child with violet eyes had grown into a remarkable young woman of 16, her unusual features now striking rather than merely strange. Her silver-pale skin had a luminous quality that seemed to capture and reflect light, and her dark hair held hints of deep purple that became visible in certain angles of sunlight. Marcus watched her from the observation deck as she tended to their expanded hydroponic garden, her movements graceful and precise. She'd insisted on enlarging the growing area each year, claiming the plants spoke to her about their needs. He'd initially dismissed it as teenage whimsy until he noticed that everything she touched seemed to flourish beyond normal parameters. Their tomatoes grew larger and sweeter than they should have at this altitude, their herbs more fragrant and potent than any commercial variety. "The atmospheric readings are spiking again," Luna called out, not looking up from the nutrient solution. She was adjusting. "Storm coming in from the northwest. Should hit us around midnight." Marcus checked his instruments, frowning. The barometric pressure was still normal, the satellite feeds showing clear skies for the next 48 hours. But Luna was never wrong about the weather. Her predictions had become so accurate that he'd started submitting them alongside his official reports, carefully crediting them to advanced pattern analysis software. "How can you tell?" he asked, stepping down into the garden area. Luna paused, her hands still submerged in the green-tinted water. "The electromagnetic field shifts. Can't you feel it? Like the air is holding its breath." Marcus moved closer, ostensibly to check her work, but really just to be near her. Over the years, he'd tried to maintain appropriate boundaries, to be the father figure she needed rather than acknowledge the complicated feelings that had begun growing alongside her. But it was becoming harder to ignore the way his heart raced when she smiled, the way her laugh could brighten even his darkest moods. "Your hair's getting long again," he said, reaching out to tuck a strand behind her ear. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through his system. Her skin was always slightly warm, as if she generated her own internal heat source. Luna looked up at him, those violet eyes searching his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever wonder what it would be like if we weren't, if I wasn't? She trailed off, but Marcus caught the implication. The question that had been lurking between them for months, the elephant in the room that neither of them wanted to address. She was 16 now, legally still a child but physically and intellectually mature beyond her years. And he was 39, increasingly aware that his feelings for her had evolved far beyond paternal affection. Luna, I know what you're going to say, she interrupted, standing and facing him fully. That it's complicated, that there are rules about these things. But what if the rules don't apply to us? What if we're different enough that normal doesn't matter? Before Marcus could respond, the proximity alarm chimed. They both frozen 9 years. That alarm had never sounded except during severe weather events. Marcus quickly activated the external cameras, scanning the perimeter. A man stood at the main entrance, wearing a government-issued coat and carrying an official-looking briefcase. He was tall, clean-shaven, with the kind of carefully neutral expression that suggested federal law enforcement. Expecting anyone? Luna asked, but her voice had taken on a strange quality, distant and echoing, as if she was speaking from very far away. No, stay here. Marcus grabbed his jacket and headed for the airlock, his mind racing. Had someone finally noticed the anomalous energy readings? Had Luna's abilities somehow attracted official attention? The man at the door was younger than Marcus had initially thought, maybe early 30s, with sharp blue eyes and an easy smile that didn't quite reach them. Mr. Webb, I'm Agent Torres, Department of Energy. I was hoping I could speak with you about some unusual readings we've been picking up from this sector. What kind of readings? Marcus kept his voice steady, though his pulse was hammering. Electromagnetic anomalies, energy fluctuations that don't match any known natural phenomena. Torres glanced past Marcus toward the station's interior. Mind if I come in? It's pretty cold out here. Every instinct Marcus had screamed at him to refuse, to make some excuse and send the agent away. But that would only raise more suspicions. Of course, though I should warn you, this isn't much of a facility. Pretty basic setup. As Torres stepped inside, Marcus caught a glimpse of Luna through the garden's glass partition. She was standing, perfectly still, her violet eyes fixed on the agent with an expression Marcus had never seen before. Predatory, dangerous, completely at odds with the sweet girl he'd raised. Impressive operation you have here, Torres said, examining the equipment rays. How long have you been monitoring this area? 9 years, since the station was established. Marcus watched the agent carefully, noting how his gaze lingered on certain instruments, how he seemed to be cataloging details for a report. And in that time, have you noticed anything unusual? Equipment malfunctions, perhaps? Unexplained power fluctuations? The question was casual, but Marcus caught the underlying tension. Nothing beyond normal operational parameters. Weather monitoring equipment is pretty sensitive to electromagnetic interference. But that's all accounted for in our calibrations. Torres nodded, but Marcus could see he wasn't satisfied. The agent moved toward the garden area, and Marcus felt his stomach clench. Mind if I take a look at your secondary systems? Actually, that area's off limits. EPA regulations about contamination protocols. It was a weak excuse, and they both knew it. Torres raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Of course. Well, I think I have what I need for now, but I may be back to conduct a more thorough investigation. The readings we're getting suggest something significant is happening in this area. After Torres left, Marcus found Luna sitting on her bed, staring out at the darkening sky. The storm she'd predicted was indeed rolling in, dark clouds building on the horizon like a wall of approaching night. He knows, she said without turning around. Somehow, he knows what I am. Luna, you're human. Different, maybe, but no. She turned to face him, and Marcus was startled to see tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm not human, Marcus. I never was. The memories are coming back. Pieces of them. Images of stars, of faces that aren't quite right, of being taken from somewhere else and brought here. Marcus sat beside her on the bed, careful to maintain some distance, even as every instinct urged him to pull her into his arms. "Tell me, I remember a woman with eyes like mine. She was crying when they took me away. And there was a man tall, with skin like starlight, who promised they'd come back for me when it was safe." Luna's voice broke. "They're not coming, are they? It's been too long. Maybe they can't. Maybe something happened that prevented them from returning. Or maybe they just forgot about me." Luna leaned against his shoulder, and Marcus felt his resolve crumbling. She was warm and soft and everything he'd ever wanted. And it didn't matter that she was 16 or that he'd raised her or that loving her was probably the most selfish thing he'd ever done. "I would never forget about you," he whispered against her hair. "No matter what happens, no matter who comes looking for you, I'll always be here." Luna tilted her face up toward his, violet eyes shimmering with unshed tears and something else, hope, maybe, or desire. "Promise me." "I promise." The storm hit that night with unusual fury, as if the weather itself was responding to the tension building within the station. Marcus lay awake listening to the wind howl round the reinforced walls, thinking about Agent Torres and government investigations, and the impossible girl sleeping just down the hall. He'd raised Luna, protected her, loved her in ways both appropriate and increasingly not, and now it seemed like their carefully constructed isolation was about to come crashing down around them. But whatever happened, whatever forces were aligning against them, Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't giving her up. Without a fight, outside, lightning split the sky, and for just a moment, Marcus could have sworn he saw something else in the storm cloud's lights that moved with too much purpose to be natural, shapes that suggested technology far beyond anything humans had developed. Luna's prediction had been wrong about one thing. The storm wasn't coming from the northwest. It was coming from above. The lights appeared 3 nights after Agent Torres's visit, dancing across the sky like aurora borealis displaced from the poles. Luna stood at the observation deck's main window, her violet eyes reflecting the strange illumination as waves of green and silver rippled through the darkness above their mountain station. "They're not natural," she whispered, her breath fogging the reinforced glass. "The patterns are too deliberate, too familiar." Marcus joined her at the window, his own instruments going haywire as electromagnetic pulses cascaded through the atmosphere. Every piece of equipment in the station was either dead or displaying readings that violated the laws of physics. The communication array had been broadcasting a high-frequency signal on repeat for the past hour, a signal that Luna claimed she could understand, though she couldn't explain how. "What are they saying?" Marcus asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. "They're calling for me, in a language I remember but never learned." Luna pressed her palm against the glass, and Marcus noticed that her skin was beginning to glow with a faint luminescence that matched the lights above. "They're saying it's time to come home." Before Marcus could respond, every alarm in the station began screaming at once. The proximity sensors were detecting multiple large objects descending through the atmosphere at impossible speeds, their energy signatures unlike anything in Earth's aerospace database. Through the swirling lights above, Marcus could make out shapes, sleek, organic forms that moved like living things rather than mechanical craft. "Luna, we need to get to the emergency shelter." But Luna wasn't listening. Her eyes had rolled back, showing only violet light, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated in Marcus's bones. "She's here. After all these years, she's finally here." The largest of the craft settled onto the plateau outside the station with impossible grace, its hull rippling like water before solidifying into a structure that seemed grown rather than built. A section of the craft's surface began to glow, then dissolved entirely, revealing an opening that spilled warm, golden light onto the snow-covered ground. 3 figures emerged from the craft, and Marcus felt his understanding of reality shift. Yet again, they were humanoid but clearly not human tall, elegant beings with the same silver pale skin as Luna, the same luminous eyes. The one in the center was female, wearing robes that seemed to be made of captured starlight, and when she looked toward the station, Marcus could see Luna's features reflected in her face like an echo across generations. "That's her," Luna breathed, her voice normal again but filled with wonder and fear. "That's my mother." The woman, Luna's mother, raised one hand. And suddenly Marcus could hear her voice in his mind, speaking words in perfect English despite the obvious impossibility of the situation, that we mean no harm to you or your world. We seek only what was taken from us long ago. Luna was already moving toward the airlock, her movements unnaturally fluid, as if she was being drawn forward by invisible strings. Marcus caught her arm, panic flaring in his chest. "Luna, wait. You don't know what they want. You don't know if it's safe." She turned to look at him, and for a moment, her violet eyes were filled with such sadness that it took his breath away. "I know you're afraid of losing me, but Marcus, I need to know who I am. I need to understand why I'm different." "You're not different. You're perfect exactly as you are." Luna smiled, reaching up to touch his face with one warm hand. "I love you for saying that, for believing it. But we both know it's not true." Before Marcus could stop her, she activated the airlock and stepped outside into the swirling snow. The cold should have been devastating. It was well below freezing, and she was wearing only a thin sweater and jeans, but she showed no signs of discomfort. As she walked toward the alien craft, Marcus grabbed his emergency coat and followed, his boots crunching through the snow as he tried to catch up. But with each step Luna took, she seemed to change, becoming more ethereal, more otherworldly. Her skin began to glow more brightly, and her hair lifted around her face as if she was underwater rather than walking through a blizzard. The three aliens watched her approach with expressions that Marcus couldn't read. When Luna was still 20 feet away, the woman in the center stepped forward and spoke, her voice carrying clearly despite the howling wind. "Saralyn, my beloved daughter, we have searched for you across 1,000 worlds." Luna stopped walking, her body trembling not from cold, but from emotion. "Saralyn, is that my real name? It is the name we gave you when you were born among the stars. But we understand if you prefer the identity you have chosen here." The woman's gaze shifted to Marcus, and he felt as if she was looking directly into his soul. "Marcus Webb, the man who saved our daughter when we could not." "I didn't save her," Marcus said, surprised to find his voice steady. "I just gave her a home. You gave her far more than that. You gave her love, protection, and the chance to grow into who she was meant to be. For that, you have our eternal gratitude." One of the other aliens, a male with intricate patterns of silver scars across his dark skin, stepped forward. But now she must choose. The abilities she possesses, the power that flows through her bloodline, they are needed by our people. A great darkness threatens our worlds, and only one with her unique heritage can stand against it. Luna looked back at Marcus, her violet eyes wide with uncertainty. "What heritage? What are you talking about?" The woman, her mother, extended one hand, and images began to flow through the air between them. Holographic scenes that told a story spanning generations. Marcus saw vast cities floating among the stars, beings of light and energy working together to tend gardens that spanned entire planets. He saw the same darkness the male had mentioned, a spreading void that consumed everything it touched, leaving only empty space where thriving worlds had once existed. "You are the child of two bloodlines," Luna's mother explained. "Your father was human, a diplomat who worked to build bridges between our species. I am Serafina of the Astral Council, keeper of the life force that binds all growing things together. Your hybrid nature gives you abilities that neither of our species possesses alone." As if to demonstrate, Luna raised her hand, and every piece of vegetation within 100 yards began to glow with the same inner light that suffused her skin. The hydroponic garden inside the station blazed like a beacon, visible even through the reinforced walls. "The council made the difficult decision to hide you here while you matured," Serafina continued. "Earth was chosen because its electromagnetic field would help mask your energy signature from those who would use your power for destructive purposes. But now you are old enough to choose your own path." Marcus felt his world crumbling around him. "You're taking her away." "We are offering her the choice," the scarred male corrected. "She may return with us to fulfill her destiny among the stars, or she may remain here with the life she has built. But she cannot continue to exist between worlds. Her power is growing stronger, and soon it will be impossible to hide. Luna stood silent for a long moment, the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible above the wind. "Can I have some time to think about it?" Serafina nodded, though Marcus caught a flicker of disappointment in her luminous eyes. "We will remain here for 3 days, but know this. My daughter, if you choose to stay, we cannot return for you again. The path between worlds is closing, and this may be our last chance to be together." As the aliens returned to their craft, Luna walked back to Marcus, her skin gradually returning to its normal pale luminescence. She didn't speak until they were back inside the station, safe behind walls that suddenly felt far too thin. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, collapsing into his arms. "I love you, Marcus. I love the life we've built here. But they're my family, my real family." Marcus held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feeling of her body against his. "Whatever you choose, I'll support you, even if it breaks my heart." Outside, the alien craft settled into the snow like a sleeping giant, its presence a constant reminder that their time together might be running out. And somewhere in the distance, Agent Torres was probably mobilizing every government resource he could access, turning their remote sanctuary into the center of the most significant first contact event in human history. 3 days to decide between love and destiny. Marcus just hoped it would be enough. Agent Torres arrived at dawn on the second day with a convoy of black vehicles and enough firepower to level a small city. Marcus watched from the observation deck as military personnel established a perimeter around the alien craft, their weapons trained on the silent vessel that had done nothing more threatening than exist. "They're going to ruin everything," Luna said, standing beside him with her hand pressed against the reinforced glass. Her skin had been glowing almost constantly since her mother's arrival, and Marcus could feel the electromagnetic energy radiating from her like heat from a furnace. "We need to warn them," Marcus said, reaching for the emergency communication system. But before he could activate it, a warm presence filled his mind. Serafina's voice, calm and reassuring. "Do not concern yourself with their weapons. They cannot harm us, and we will not harm them. But there is something more urgent we must discuss." The alien craft began to glow with the same golden light as the night before, and suddenly Serafina was standing in their living room, her form translucent, but clearly present. Luna gasped and stepped toward her mother, while Marcus instinctively moved to protect her, though he wasn't sure from what. "How did you?" Marcus began. "Matter is simply energy in a particular configuration," Serafina explained, her voice now audible rather than telepathic. "When you understand the underlying patterns, transportation becomes a matter of intention rather than technology." Luna reached out tentatively to touch her mother's hand, and Marcus was surprised to see that the contact appeared solid, real. "You're really here." "I am here in every way that matters." Serafina's violet eyes so like Luna shifted between her daughter and Marcus. "But we have little time. The ones who hunt my people have found our trail. They will arrive soon, and when they do, nowhere in this galaxy will be safe for any of us." "What hunters?" Marcus demanded. "What aren't you telling us?" Serafina's form solidified further, and Marcus could see the weight of centuries in her ageless face. "My people, the Aetheri, have the ability to nurture life across vast distances, to encourage growth and healing on a planetary scale. But there are others the void touched who consume life energy to sustain themselves. They have been hunting us for millennia, driving us from world to world. And Luna is important to them, because she's part human." Marcus was beginning to understand the scope of what they were facing. "Luna is important because she represents something new, a bridge between species that could unite the galaxy against the void touched. Her hybrid nature gives her abilities that neither Aetheri nor human possess alone. She could teach both our peoples to work together, to become stronger than the sum of our parts." Luna sank into a chair, overwhelmed. "But I don't know how to do any of that. I can barely control what's happening to me now, which is why you need training, guidance, time to grow into your power." Serafina knelt beside her daughter's chair. "But I realize now that taking you away from here would be a mistake. This place, this connection you have built with Marcus, it has made you stronger, not weaker." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. "Hope. perhaps, or relief. What are you saying? I am saying that perhaps it is time for me to learn what my daughter has discovered about the value of human connection. Serafina stood, her starlight robes settling around her like liquid silver. If you would permit it, I would like to stay here to learn about your world, your ways, and to help prepare Luna for what is coming. The request hung in the air between them, loaded with implications that Marcus didn't have time to fully process. Outside, he could hear helicopters circling, the crackle of radio transmissions as Torres coordinated his forces. But inside the station, a different kind of negotiation was taking place. You want to live here with us? Luna's voice was small, uncertain. I have spent 3,000 years among the stars, my daughter. Perhaps it is time I learned what it means to have a home. Marcus looked between the two women, one the girl he'd raised and loved, the other an ancient being of impossible power who shared her daughter's eyes and grace. The situation was beyond complicated, beyond anything he'd ever imagined facing. The government won't just leave us alone, he said finally. Torres suspects something, and after this display, they'll want answers. Then we give them some answers. Serafina replied, not the whole truth, that would terrify them, but enough to satisfy their curiosity and establish a framework for cooperation. Before Marcus could respond, the station's communication system crackled to life. Torres's voice filled the room, tight with barely controlled authority. Mr. Webb, this is Agent Torres. We have the area surrounded. Please exit the building with your hands visible and prepare for debriefing. Luna stood, her skin flaring with violet light. They're treating us like criminals. They're treating us like a potential threat. Marcus corrected, which, to be fair, we probably are. Serafina moved to the window, gazing out at the military forces arrayed around their peaceful station. Perhaps it is time for a more direct approach. What do you mean? But Serafina was already dissolving, her form becoming light and energy that flowed through the station's walls like water. A moment later, Marcus heard shouts from outside, the sound of weapons powering down, and then an odd silence that spoke of something beyond human understanding. She's showing herself to them, Luna said, moving to the window. Look, Marcus pressed his face to the glass and saw Serafina standing in the center of the military perimeter, her form blazing with golden light that made the snow around her feet steam and melt. Torres and his men stood frozen, their weapons lowered, staring at a being who clearly represented everything their training had never prepared them for. Then Serafina spoke, her voice carrying across the mountain air with impossible clarity. I am Serafina of the Aethery Council. I come in peace, seeking only to protect my daughter and learn from your species. I propose a meeting your leaders and mine to discuss how our peoples might work together for the benefit of all. Torres stepped forward, his professional composure cracking. You're really alien, as alien to you as you are to me. But perhaps that difference is not something to fear. Marcus felt Luna take his hand, her fingers warm and steady. Whatever happens now, we face it together, all three of us. Outside, history was being made as the first official contact between humanity and an alien species unfolded on the snowy plateau around their home. But inside the station, something quieter but no less significant was happening. A family was forming, stranger and more complicated than any that had come before. Are you okay with this? Marcus asked Luna quietly. Having her here, Luna squeezed his hand, her violet eyes bright with unshed tears. I'm terrified, but I'm also hopeful. For the first time in my life, I don't have to choose between who I was and who I've become. Through the window, they watched as Torres and Serafina continued their historic conversation, while the alien craft hummed quietly in the background like a promise of wonders yet to come. The world was about to change forever, but for Marcus, Luna, and Serafina, the most important change had already begun. The slow, careful process of learning how to be a family when none of the traditional rules applied. 6 months after first contact, the research station had been transformed into something unprecedented, a diplomatic outpost that served as the primary liaison point between Earth and the Aethery Council. The original modest structure had been expanded with both human technology and Aethery bioengineering, creating a living building that pulsed with gentle light and adjusted its internal environment based on the emotional states of its inhabitants. Marcus stood in what had once been his simple kitchen, now a complex culinary laboratory where Serafina experimented with blending earth ingredients with ethery nutritional science. She moved with ethereal grace as she worked, her starlight robes replaced with practical clothes that somehow still managed to look otherworldly. On her tall frame, "The molecular structure of your coffee beans is fascinating," she said, holding up a steaming mug that glowed faintly blue. "I've enhanced the caffeine with trace minerals from our home world. It should provide sustained energy without the crash your species typically experiences." Marcus accepted the mug, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. Even after all these months, physical contact with Serafina sent electricity through his system, part attraction, part awe at the sheer alienness of her existence. "You don't have to keep trying to improve everything. You know," he said softly, "some things are perfect just as they are." Serafina's violet eyes met his, and Marcus saw something there that made his breath catch. "Are they? I sometimes wonder if my presence here is an improvement or simply a complication." Before Marcus could respond, Luna entered the kitchen, her own appearance transformed by months of training with her mother. Her hybrid abilities had stabilized, allowing her to shift between her human appearance and something far more luminous, depending on her emotional state. Right now, she was somewhere in between, beautiful in a way that seemed to bend light around her. "The council delegation will be here within the hour," she announced. But her attention was focused on the tension between Marcus and her mother. "Are you two going to figure this out before they arrive? Or should I expect another evening of meaningful glances and careful distance?" Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. Over the past months, his relationship with both women had evolved in ways that defied easy categorization. Luna was no longer the child he'd raised at 17. She was mature beyond her years, her hybrid nature giving her insights into human emotion that sometimes unsettled him. And his feelings for her had shifted as well, becoming something deeper than paternal love, but held in check by years of self-imposed boundaries. Meanwhile, Serafina had become a constant presence in their lives, learning human customs with the intensity of a scholar while displaying a warmth and humor that made it easy to forget. She was an ancient being of immense power. Marcus found himself drawn to her in ways that had nothing to do with her alien nature, and everything to do with the woman she revealed herself to be in quiet moments. "There's nothing to figure out," Marcus said, though his voice lacked conviction. Luna raised an eyebrow, an expression she'd inherited from him rather than her mother. "Really? Because I can literally feel the electromagnetic tension between you two." "It's been building for weeks, Luna," Serafina began. "No, let me finish." Luna moved to stand between them, her violet eyes serious. "I know this is complicated. I know there are rules about guardian-ward relationships, about human-alien interactions, about what's considered appropriate, but none of those rules account for us." She looked at Marcus first. "You raised me, protected me, loved me when I had no one else, but I'm not your little girl anymore. And the way you look at me has changed. I can see it in your eyes. You're fighting feelings that scare you." Marcus wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in his throat. Luna had always been perceptive, but her developing abilities made it impossible to hide emotional truth from her. "And you," Luna turned to Serafina, "have spent months learning what it means to be part of a family, to care about individuals, rather than just species. You've watched Marcus with me, seen how he loves without reservation, and it's awakened something in you that you didn't know existed." Serafina's normally composed expression cracked slightly. "My daughter, the situation is more complex than you understand, is it? Or are we making it complex because we're afraid to admit what we all want?" The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the living walls around them. Outside, Marcus could see the approaching lights of the council delegation's transport. But for the moment, the universe had narrowed to the three of them and the truth that Luna was forcing them to confront. "What are you saying, Luna?" Marcus asked quietly. "I'm saying that love doesn't follow convenient rules. I'm saying that in a universe full of impossible things, maybe the most impossible thing is that we found each other." Luna's skin began to glow with soft violet light as her emotions intensified. "I love you both. differently, but completely, and I hope that you love me too. Marcus felt his carefully constructed barriers crumbling. Luna, you don't understand what you're asking. I understand that life is short and unpredictable. I understand that the void touch could attack tomorrow and we might not have another chance. To be honest with each other, Luna reached out, taking one of his hands and one of Serafina's. I understand that what we have together, this family we've built, is worth more than adherence to rules that were made by people who never imagined our situation. The physical contact created a circuit between the three of them, and suddenly, Marcus could feel what Luna had been sensing, the electromagnetic resonance of their emotions, the way their different forms of consciousness harmonized when they were together. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at once. Among my people, Serafina said softly, love is considered a force of nature. Like gravity or electromagnetism, it creates bonds that transcend physical law, connections that can span galaxies. She looked at Marcus, then at Luna. I have lived for millennia without understanding what that truly meant. Until now, Marcus found his voice, though it came out rough with emotion. I've spent my whole adult life afraid of wanting too much, of reaching for things I didn't deserve. But you two, you've taught me that maybe the universe is bigger than my fears. Luna smiled, her luminescence brightening until the entire kitchen was bathed in soft violet light. So we try. All of us, together, outside. The council delegation was landing, bringing with it questions about Earth's readiness to join the galactic community and Luna's role in the coming conflict with the void touched. There would be politics to navigate, protocols to establish, and 100 complications arising from humanity's introduction to a wider universe. But inside their transformed home, three beings from different worlds had found something that transcended species, age, and convention. As they moved into each other's arms, Marcus, Luna, and Serafina forming a circle of connection that pulsed with shared light, they created something new, a family bound not by blood or law, but by the simple recognition that love, in all its forms, was the most powerful force in any universe. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the cosmos itself approved of what they had chosen to build together.